Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher, and this is the Typhon Analog Synthesizer by Dreadbox. So I was really excited when I first heard that I was going to get a Typhon unit to review, because the specs looked really exciting, but I had no idea how exciting it was going to actually be until I got it and started playing with it. It looks deceptively simple, and at the surface level it is simple. It's one of the beauties of it. You have dedicated knobs for your wave shapes and different wave routings. You have a separate knob for cutoff and resonance and your EG amount, another knob for amp envelope time and filter envelope time. You've also got the ability to move ADSRs with the sliders, but those sliders do a lot more once you dig into the menu here. And it's got a 32-step sequencer per patch, so the thing can play itself. And it does one of those things that I really like, which is as you hit a different key, it transposes the sequence for that preset. It definitely makes it a more interesting live performance tool. And the modulation possibilities are really exciting. At first glance, it looks like, yeah, you have 3 modulation connections, but really, it's 3 modulation sources, and you could choose from a list of those, but then each of those modulation sources can go to 13 different locations simultaneously, each with their own depth, both positive and negative. So there's a total of 39 connections there per preset, which is really exciting. And each of the modulators can be an LFO, it can be an envelope, it can be random, or it can be yet another sequencer designed just for stepping through parameter values. There's also an 1/8 inch TS audio in jack that lets you run other sources through the filter, amp, and all of the effects. So this is also a great little effects box as well. And although this is a small portable device, it's actually very sturdy. It's in an all-metal enclosure. The knobs all feel really tight, and yet everything's spaced out really well. It's very, very well designed. I got to say, the more I learn about it, the more I'm surprised at how well it's thought out all the way through. And because it runs off USB power, you can power it from your computer or from a phone charger or even a phone charger battery, where they say you can get up to 60 hours on this. So this is really a portable solution. And it has headphone jack out as well as the line level outs, so you really could just take this anywhere and do some programming. And because it has the 32-note step sequencer as well as a 32-note sequencer, you can create things right there without a keyboard. But when you add a keyboard, it gets really exciting because, as I said, the sequences transpose from the keyboard, as well as obviously you can play it live from the keyboard. So the first knob we're going to talk about is the wave knob, and it's probably the most interesting knob on this synth because of how many different things it's doing simultaneously. It's very clever. So not only is it changing the wave shape, as you would expect, but it's changing the volume balance between the 2 oscillators, and it changes in some positions what the routing is in the modulation. For example, all the way left, it's doing frequency modulation, or FM. Farther up, it's doing pulse width modulation of a square wave. But we're going to start with it set here, where it's got just 1 oscillator, and it's showing you that I have sawtooth oscillator 2 only. And so I'm going to play that. It's a very fat oscillator. And as I turn the knob clockwise, we're going to be bringing in oscillator 1, which is currently set to be in unison, in tune, but it may drift a little bit because they're analog oscillators, but you're going to notice that extra girth and maybe a little bit of slight phasing. Now, if I want that to go faster, I simply turn the tune knob up a little bit. When it's at the unison and octave and 2 octaves, it actually becomes a fine tune, but once you get to half step, it locks itself into half steps until you get to the next octave. So it's both a transposition knob and a detune knob in one knob. Very, very clever. So I'm going to start detuning it a little now. And then as I turn this knob all the way up to the top, you're going to get only a square wave of oscillator 1. And now I'm going to turn the knob slightly clockwise, and I'm going to make oscillator 2, which is now set to a sawtooth, come in. I'll detune it. And now I'm going to start doing half steps. And so notice how in the first part of the throw, I have a nice detuning fine tune, but then all of a sudden it went by steps. So live, it's just great to be able to get those intervals without having to worry about, am I in tune or not? So here's a perfect fifth. And now I'm going to bring that all the way up to the octave. And notice on that last half step, all of a sudden it's detuning again instead of just jumping from the 7th to the octave. Now I can go up another octave again by half steps. So you can also get slight detuning when you're up there near the 2-octave interval. So now as I start moving the knob from the 12 o'clock position, I can start changing the pulse width. I'm adding in a triangle. And then when I get all the way to here, it's just triangle. And then as I start going even more counterclockwise, I start getting frequency modulation of one oscillator against the other. And where that really gets interesting is when you start detuning oscillator 2. So now a full sweep from fully counterclockwise to fully clockwise. So that's only the first knob, and the power that's there is amazing. So now we'll move on to the filter. It's a 24 dB per octave 4-pole filter with resonance. And I'll start all the way from the top and then close it. Remember, this is with no modulation, no effects. That's just the oscillators you're hearing. So now I'm going to start adding resonance. And some more. And a lot more. So we're going to do a whole section of this video on the effects, but right now I've got to throw a stereo ping-pong delay on this filter. I just love a really good digital ping pong on an analog oscillator into an analog filter. So now I'm going to reluctantly turn down the stereo ping pong delay, and we'll keep talking about the filter. Now I'm going to talk about the EG level knob, and what that does is says how much of the filter envelope generator goes to the filter cutoff. And so first I want to get these sliders to become filter envelope generators. You do that by pressing this button, and now the shift button alternates between VCF and VCA envelope settings, and each have their own. So right now my amp setting is what I'm calling an organ envelope, in that it's instant on, stays full on, instant off. And then I'm going back to filter, and so now I'm going to do just an instant attack, a medium decay. I'll bring the sustain about halfway down, and a fairly short release. And if I just play without the EG up, nothing will happen. And now as I bring the EG up, you're going to start hearing the envelope moving that filter. And once you set your ADSR shape the way that you like it, there's yet another clever knob dealing with filter time called filter time. And basically what it's doing is it's globally lengthening or shortening the attack time, the decay time, and the release time. So that really makes it great when you're playing live or you have a sequencer going and you just want to kind of shorten things up, lengthen things without getting into individual micromanaging of the ADSR. You can just do it with this large knob. It's very clever. And of course, like everything on here, that can be a modulation destination too, which is very cool. And now while the EG light is still lit, if I hit the shift button, that now shifts me to the amp ADSR, and I have the filter wide open. So now we're going to just listen to volume envelope. And like with the filter, there's also an amp time knob, and what it does is simply globally shift the times of the attack, the decay, and the release. So here's the envelope I currently have, and now I'm going to shorten it and lengthen it. So that gives you the ability to have really short envelope times as well as really lengthy ones for nice ambient things. And the last knob on the panel is the volume knob, and that is not stored per preset. It is just a live master volume. So those are the front panel knobs, and as you can see, you can do a lot of synthesis without even really menu diving a lot. But when you really want to start doing some serious synthesizing, we now use this rotary encoder knob that's also a push button. And from the home page, which you get to from this blue back button, it lets you choose across the top whether you're dealing with modulator 1, modulator 2, modulator 3, effects 1, effects 2, effects 3, and then more global settings toward the end there. So we'll start with modulator 1, and I'm going to use this shift key to choose LFO. And I've got my wave set to triangle, and my current destination is CV, which is the control voltage of the oscillators. So as I raise the depth, you're going to just start hearing some vibrato. Now I'll play with the rate. Crank the level up. Now, if I want, I can use the fade parameter to have the LFO fade in over time. And I can go all the way to this level of fade. Or I could set the fade parameter to negative and have the LFO start instantly, but then fade out. So it's just really nice for when you're doing live performances with one hand and you don't have to worry about LFOs coming in or going out. They'll do them automatically. So now I'm going to choose a second destination. Like I said, I can have up to 13 of those. And I'm going to set it to cutoff, and now you can hear that the cutoff is also responding to this LFO, but I can respond positively or negatively, and at whatever depth I choose, that's different from how it's doing pitch. So that was an LFO. Now I'm going to change it to be an envelope simply by hitting the shift one time. And now I have an envelope generator that's different from the envelope generator for filter and different from the envelope generator for amplitude. I could assign it, for example, to pitch. And now, and again, I can change the polarity. And so now I'm going to choose another modulation type, which is random. And it is going to be going to pitch, since that's easy to hear. And I have a rate and I have a level, but I also have a lag, which means that it glides between a value or not at whatever amount I want. And then there's a probability. So I can do the percentage of how much it's going to change each time it does random. So with a probability of 0, it doesn't change. And the last modulation type is step. And that's a step sequencer that's separate from the note sequencer. Now, they're both the same kind of sequencers in a lot of ways, except that the step sequencer can do things other than notes as well. It can also do pitch of either both oscillators or one of the oscillators, but you can have different levels and different polarities for each. And so basically, first you can choose how many steps are in each of the 3 step sequencers. And what's interesting is you could have a different number of steps for your note sequencer and a different number of steps for the 3 step sequencers, meaning that you could have something that evolves over many, many, many minutes before it repeats itself, because each is a different length. So what you do is you pick the total number of length for this modulator, and then you can move through the 32 steps. And for each of the steps, you get to choose a level, and then you choose a destination and a particular level for that destination. So I'm gonna kind of randomly do this here. I'm gonna just go through each step and just change levels here. And before I say it too many more times, I'm going to just say it one last time, is that each of those 3 step sequencers can simultaneously go to 13 different things, and each of those can have their own levels, positive or negative, per step. So ridiculous. Like, you could spend years and years and years programming this thing and coming up with something different every time. So now we finally get to the effects. These are created by a company called Sinevibes. It's a third-party company, and it's a really good match. My favorite match when I'm playing with monophonic synthesizers is to have analog oscillators, analog filters and amps, and then going into really high-quality digital effects, because I need all that high-frequency information to be captured. And things like analog delays, they're just not capable of doing that, and I need the sprinkle. So the first one is, and I get to it by the encoder knob, I get to effects 1, and it does different types of distortions. And my sliders do gain, mix, and FM of filter. That's S-curve. Here's tri-clip. Here's shred. Here's bitcrush. So what we're doing here is we're starving the bit depth, and we're lowering the sampling rate, so we're creating aliasing. And then hard clip. And full back. And we're back to S-curve. So that's effects 1. So I'm going to turn that mix all the way off. Back. And now I'm going to go to effects 2. And now our choices are chorus, and I have control over the width and the speed and the feedback and the depth. So a lot of choices. Clearly very stereo. Then I've got an ensemble effect. And then a flanger. And then we're back to chorus. And then on the third effect, we have a choice of reverb. And I could choose my size from a very small and I'm going to increase the size. And now I'm going to change the pre-delay, or in other words, how long it takes before the reverb comes in. But it can also be a standard delay. And you can have a different delay time for the left and the right. But that won't give you ping pong. It'll just give you interesting left and right things. But if you hit this one more time, you get ping pong, which I love. And you can control the damping of the high frequencies. You can cut some lows, you can cut highs, you can change the feedback amount, you can change the time. And then we're back to reverb. So now we're going to just play some patches. There are 256 preset slots in here. Half of them are filled with factory. The other half are inits. But you can overwrite anything. And there's a free patch manager that you can get online that will let you move the patches around easily. So let's just play through them. And to load a preset, you simply hit the load button and you're going to see A, B, C, D. Those are 4 banks of 64. Like I said, the first 2 are factory presets, but you can overwrite them. And then C and D is for you, but you can write them anywhere. So I hit the button, I'm in A, and I'll pick a sound, and then I press the encoder one more time, and in we go, and now I can play that patch. If I hit the sequence button, now I can play it. Well, I could do this all day long, and after the cameras are off, I'm going to. This is the Typhon analog synthesizer. If you have any questions about this or the Arturia KeyStep Pro, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. For more videos like these, click here or go to sweetwater.com for all your music, instrument, and pro audio needs.